Whereas the City of Olympia recognizes that the indigenous peoples of the lands which would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial. And whereas the City of Olympia recognizes that Olympia is built upon the homelands and villages of the indigenous peoples of this region, without whom the building of the city would not have been possible. And whereas the City of Olympia values the many contributions made to our community through indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural contributions that have substantially shaped the character of the City of Olympia. And whereas the City of Olympia has a responsibility to oppose the systematic racism towards indigenous peoples in the United States, which perpetuates poverty and income inequality and exacerbates disproportionate health, education, and social stability. And whereas the City of Olympia promotes the closing of the equity gap for indigenous peoples through policies and practices that reflect the experiences of indigenous peoples, ensure greater access and opportunity, and honor our nation's indigenous roots, history, and contributions. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations, sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen H. Buxbaum, Mayor of the City of Olympia, do hereby proclaim the following. 1. The Indigenous Peoples Day shall be an opportunity to celebrate the thriving cultures and positive values of the indigenous peoples of our region. 2. The Olympia Public Schools and other educational institutions are encouraged to include the teaching of indigenous peoples' history. 3. The businesses, organizations, and public institutions are encouraged to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. 4. The City of Olympia shall promote the well-being and growth of the American Indian and Indigenous community in the greater Olympia area. 5. Indigenous Peoples Day shall be used to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people and to celebrate the thriving culture and value that Squaxin, Nisqually, Puyallup, Chehalis, Suquamish, Duwamish, and other indigenous nations add to our city. And 6. The second Monday in October shall be declared as Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Olympia. Thank you all so very much.